2 days earlier. This brutal killing took place while the family was gathered at home on a Sunday afternoon. The day of the crime, the father went to the trunk of his car, retrieved the rifle, and shot his wife as she was cleaning up the kitchen after lunch. When his 10-year-old son came to investigate the commotion, the father shot him too. His 6-year-old daughter had the good sense to hide in the bathroom, but reports suggest he lured her out by telling her it was just a game. The girl was found shot once in the chest from point-blank range. The mother, who he shot in the stomach, was pregnant at the time. Police arriving on scene after neighbors called 911 found the father in his car.
Well, hello there, friends, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Wes. With me, as always, Hey, wait a minute. You're not my good friend, Ruuts. What did you do with my co-host, sir?
Most definitely not. He is irreplaceable.
Where'd your beard go, man?
It's much smaller, and I have a little bit more hair.
Anyway, my good friend Eric, or as we like to call him, the third stranger. For those of you who don't know, my good friend Ruuts had prior engagements for this weekend. He had personal life stuff that he needed to take care of. But never fear, our good friend Mash Daddy to the rescue. We didn't want to go a whole week without giving you guys some sort of content. So we've got what I think is going to turn out to be a good one today. But couldn't do it at all without you, sir. So thank you for sitting in for us.
I'm always happy to be on anytime I can help.
All right, so what are we doing here today? We are going to be talking about something that is, it's been on my mind. It's been on my mind for a couple of months now, and it's this whole unfolding saga surrounding the abandoned PlayStation 5 game. And what is that? We'll get into that in a moment. But if you ask a lot of people would tell you that they think that Abandon is really Silent Hill. And we're going to be talking about why. We're going to be talking about whether or not we think that this game, not Abandon, but Silent Hill, if we get Silent Hill, could it be VR? I think it's a possibility, Eric. I think based upon the preponderance of evidence, I think that it's probably at worst a 40-60 shot. Like, I think there's a good chance that it could be VR.
I mean, if you look at so many of these points that we were going to bring up tonight, it points right to VR. I mean, there's so many points that cannot be just coincidence, and you almost have to assume somewhere is going to be VR.
Right, and it's like this is some of the stuff are things that we've talked about before. But, it's been a while. So as I was writing the show and I was putting the notes together, I guess I probably should bring my notes up, by the way. As I was putting my notes together, I had forgotten just how much evidence there was that Hideo Kojima and his next game, I think at this point, judging by what we're going to talk about in just a moment, I think that even if his next game doesn't turn out to be a VR game, I think the one after that will, right? I think it's pretty obvious at this point.
I mean, he wants to do VR. He's wanted to do VR for a long time. I mean, he's got his fingerprints all over VR. I think a couple of his projects have held him back. And that's why he hasn't done one so far. But I would say you're absolutely right. If it's not this one, it's going to be soon.
Anyway, I want to thank you guys in chat who hung out there for a few minutes as we were getting the technical issues rolled out. This is actually my first time operating inside of OBS. So predictably, things went wrong, and we had to put out fires before we could come on the air here. But the good news is, while the look of things may be a little different than what you're used to, I think it's going to turn out pretty good. And nobody's complaining yet, Eric, that they can't hear us or we're too loud or trailer audio. So far, so good, right?
Yeah, I mean, you did a great job. I mean, going from not knowing exactly what you're doing at all this morning when you woke up to having the show ready to go tonight.
Yeah, dude.
Hats off. Hats
I've
off to you, my friend.
I've literally put in a 10-hour shift. When I should have been sleeping because I do have to work. I have to leave in an hour. Uh, when I should have been sleeping, I was actually learning OBS, setting up scenes. And then writing the show.
Yeah.
We've been hard at it, so hopefully this episode turns out to be as good as I think it's going to be. I can't wait to get into it. But before we do that, let's kick it off the way we always do by saying hello to our friends in chat. Gaming Science Teacher is in the chat, and she says, after seeing Death Stranding, I think a Kojima game in VR would be very interesting. And I think that that's the one given, Eric. Like, people are so enamored with this guy and what he's going to do next, and whether his game turns out to be a huge super hit or a cult classic. One thing that Kojima games always are is interesting.
Oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, he's got his hand over so many games and genres, and I mean, he's got a cult following, more than a cult following. He's got a huge following just for him personally. Anything he touches is going to be something that you're going to want to play. I mean, that's just the way it is. And people have, I mean, look at the mystery surrounding this. He creates these things. I mean, he's a mastermind at doing this stuff, and and he does it on purpose. He knows what he's doing.
Well, he's a guy that likes to color outside the lines. He doesn't conform to the norms, and that's why people love him so much. He's truly an artist. We often talk about game developers as being artists. It doesn't always apply, but I think it does. I think it totally applies to him, probably more so than most. This is the Game Cat in chat. What's up? As is Zaylin Maru and Scion. What's up, Scion? Abdullah Saad 95. There's a high chance it's hard to be conceded. Okay. Techno Glitch, Silent Hill would be awesome. Yeah, I agree, man. Spry Guy noticing I got my hair cut. I just took my hat off. No, you're right. I actually did get my hair cut. That's the reason why my hat's off. Actually, I just forgot to put my hat on. But if I hadn't gotten a haircut, I would have made sure to remember to put my hat on. So yeah, thanks for noticing. Lincoln Clay's in the chat, as is Decepticon. Oh, the most unsettling demo of all time, dude. I know it, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Traveling Man 3775, Ognev. Why have we no info about the stream with Hassan? I'm not sure exactly what stream that you're talking about. He did do a stream a couple of days ago, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe that's what you're talking about. I'm not sure. Anyway, welcome. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Thanks for showing up for this. I mean, this one's kind of on the fringes of VR content, but I promise you, we're going to bring it in within the boundaries so we don't get a yellow card from the VR referee. Eric McCoy joining the chat. It can just be an app that does something with any games, including Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid. So he's talking about the abandoned PS5 app that is set to go live in just over a week. Eric, did you download the app yet?
I did it today, actually. I knew it was in there. It was a little bit difficult to find out. You couldn't do it from mobile app, so I was looking all over my mobile app for it. You actually have to go into the PlayStation Store on your PlayStation to do it, because on the mobile app it doesn't show the download for the trailer experience, or however they're calling it.
Yeah, so they're calling this a real-time trailer app. So initially they were calling it something that you could use to view the upcoming trailers for Abandoned in real time. We have since learned that that you can actually there's going to be more to it than just watching. you're going to want to have your dual sense in your hand and headphones on, because there's going to be spatial audio. They're going to use the dual sense haptics. This is very much going to be an experience.
Yeah, it's not going to be a game for sure, but it's going to be, it's going to have, you're going to have something going on in that game. It's not going to be you watching a trailer, right? It's going to have some type of experience in there that brings you into it more than just sitting and watching a flat screen trailer.
Right, and all for something that they claim is just an indie game from an unknown developer.
Yeah, and something that Sony, another point to make, that Sony has never done this before either, and they're doing this for an indie developer. A little
Right.
strange.
Yeah. Anyway, let's dive in. We have a lot to cover here, not much time to get to it. I guess we should start at the beginning. And I guess the very beginning would be, who is Hideo Kojima? And a lot of people out there may be, maybe snickering at that question. But to be honest, I didn't know who Hideo Kojima was until I started playing VR. It's been within the last 5 years that I found out who this guy is, this legend in the gaming industry. Eric, how long have you been aware of Mr. Kojima and his role within the gaming community?
First Metal Gear Solid. That was when he came on. They brought him on to to write the story and to take care of that game. And then he just shot up right from there and actually ended up taking over Konami. So yeah, that was when I first started hearing about him.
So you actually are a longtime fan of this man. I'm a fan, but it's more recent. But anyway, Hideo Kojima is a Japanese video game designer, director, producer, and writer. In 1986, he was hired by Konami, for which he designed and wrote Metal Gear, a game that laid the foundations for stealth games and the Metal Gear series, his best known and most appreciated works. He's probably best known for his design work on Metal Gear Solid in 1998 for PlayStation. In 2005, Kojima founded Kojima Productions, a software house controlled by Konami, and by 2011 he was appointed vice president of Konami Digital Entertainment. So we have this guy here who comes in as your common, everyday game developer. He takes a lead role on the original Metal Gear, and in doing so, he creates a genre. And it impresses the people at Konami so much that this guy actually becomes a high-ranking executive at the company in less than 2 decades working there. It's a pretty impressive resume, even up until this point.
Yeah, I mean, he took Konami through the early PlayStation years and made them. I mean, they were a great company before. I mean, but they were more of a great company with arcades. Um, he brought them through the PlayStation and the console eras, and he made them what they were. You know, with the games and with his direction, the art direction and the direction of other games that he had his fingers on too.
Yeah, and there was much more than just Metal Gear, right? I mean, there was there was the Zone of the Enders series, which, by the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but one of those Zone of the Enders games is playable in VR. You can buy it on Steam. You can buy it on the PlayStation Store. Actually, it wouldn't be the first Kojima VR game if Silent Hills did turn out to be a VR game.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, in 2015, Kojima Productions split from Konami, becoming an independent studio, and their first game, independent of Konami, was actually Death Stranding. And I think that for a lot of the people who are new to gaming, people who have come in recent years, we have a lot in our community who weren't gamers before VR, or at least a few. And I think that when these people, if they know of Kojima, Death Stranding is probably why. This was a pretty big deal over the last couple of years.
Yeah, this was his big budget game. Norman Reedus, PlayStation 4 you know, beautiful looking cinematic action story. I mean, this was an amazing game.
Next level weirdness is what I like to call it. You know me, I always like my unique
100%.
games. I like games that make me think, and that's the thing that's really a hallmark of Kojima's work, at least in the later years. Um, it's not just weirdness for the sake of weirdness. There's generally some kind of story that he's trying to tell, or some kind of theme that he's trying to hit. There's a reason for everything with this guy. He really he portrays a lot of the traits of a great novelist or a great movie maker. Uh, these characteristics are more likely to be found in those industries than they have been over the last, I don't know, couple of decades in the gaming industry.
Yeah. And who doesn't want to ride around with a like a baby strapped to their chest, right? I mean, perfect for
Well,
video games, right?
you know who always runs around with a baby strapped to their chest? All right, so yeah, this is where we
I
miss.
don't have the button.
This is where we miss Roots in the My Mom button. I only have so many hours in the day. I didn't have time to set up My Mom. So
I'll give it a my mom.
so hopefully hopefully it'll be a long time before Roots decides to take another day off. But if he does, I'll be sure to have the My Mom button ready to go. So Disabled VR Warrior, what's up, Wolvie? Thanks for joining us. Gaming science teacher says next level weirdness is a good way to describe that game. Yeah, man, it's one of the things, honestly, and I'm glad Scion's in chat. I've been watching some of the Into the Radius footage recently. That game's got some pretty crazy weirdness in it too. So I'm thinking, it's weird because there's never a good time to jump into the Radius, and I don't want to get off on a tangent. But it's got that same weirdness, that same kind of weirdness that's at play in Death Stranding. But there's never a good time because that game's so well supported. There's always a better version right around the corner.
Oh yeah, they'll have something coming. They'll have like 2 new maps or something definitely coming out next week, or new weapons or something.
Right, new
More DLSS or yeah.
upgraded graphics. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to our good friend, or our subject of our show, Mr. Kojima here. In mid 2012, and in the years since then, Kojima has been has become connected to the Silent Hill series. During this time, he indicated on multiple occasions that he was interested in making a Silent Hill game. In August of 2014, PT was released on the PlayStation Store and revealed that a new game in the Silent Hill franchise titled Silent Hills, not Silent Hill, but Silent Hills, was being directed by Kojima for PlayStation 4. And get this, alongside Mexican film director Guillermo del Toro, starring Norman Reedus. So if there's any kind of indicator what kind of an outlier Kojima is within the video game world, the fact that he's going to, he willed himself into being able to make a Silent Hills game, and then brought these big Hollywood names with him. It's a shame because in April 2015, following Kojima's departure from Konami, the playable teaser was removed and Silent Hills was canceled. And in the years since then, Eric, this playable teaser, which some people still have on their PlayStations, we call them the lucky ones, this playable teaser has gone on to cult status. And the game that was never to be, Silent Hills, is kind of the top of the list with regards to the one that got away. This is the game that everyone wanted and nobody got. We all wanted to see what Kojima could do with horror, with an immersive cinematic horror game, with Hollywood level talent working with him. It's something that still hurts people's hearts to this very day.
Did you get to see it, Wes? Do you still have? You don't still have it on your PlayStation,
Well,
right?
Well, I mentioned at no, I have not played PT on PlayStation, but I said at the top that I have learned about Mr. Kojima since I became a VR gamer. Well, the reason why I learned about him and who he is was because I played Unreal PT, which is a fan remake, a very accurate remake of the original PT. Only this one supports VR. So I played PT in VR, and it made such an impression on me. I looked into it more, and then that's when I learned about Mr. Kojima.
Was there something that was made in Dreams also?
Yeah,
Or
there's
am I wrong?
actually there's more than one fan remakes of PT and Dreams, and I mean they're fun. If you've played the PT before, it's nice to go in there and have these see this kind of fan service to it. But none of those are anywhere near the level of Unreal PT, the PC VR playable version. That game is, from what I understand, a pretty accurate representation of the original. The one problem with it is it wasn't made for VR. You can play it in VR, but it wasn't made for VR. And there's actually a bug, unless I'm mistaken, unless it's been fixed. There's a bug that doesn't allow you to actually see the ending of the thing, so you're kind of just trapped forever in it. But if you play it flat, you can finish it. Uh,
Just goes to show you how crushed people were, right? When they canceled that. I mean, people wanted that so bad. And they're going out there making, all these homages to it and, spending time and, resources doing these things in dreams and in other ways because they wanted it so bad.
well, um, it says something, right? That here we are, mid 2021, nearly a decade later. This is nearly a decade later. Uh, People in the middle of the year 2021 are speculating that some unknown game from some unknown developer might be the resurrection of the abandoned Silent Hills uh, game that was supposed to come out in 2014, or at least was announced in 2014. So I think that speaks volumes to just how much people love PT and how much they were looking forward to Silent Hills. But it's an uphill battle. I mean, Kojima and Konami did not part amicably. They it was a messy divorce, we'll call it, and they have been public rivals ever since. So if something like that were to come together and Kojima were to be able to finish this project, it would take uh, a minor miracle, and we would assume on behalf of someone like Sony to as a middleman to make it happen.
Sony's got the power, right? They got the power to do it. If
They got the
anybody was going to
money.
do it, Sony's got the money, they got the pull, they got the power. Um, everybody says that Kojima is not really with Sony anymore. He's more Xbox, but trust me, in the end, he'll go where the most systems are sold. I guarantee it.
Abdullah Saad 95 says, "Yep, what a shame to lose this game." Yeah, she was the one that got away, right? And what could have been had we just stuck with her. Uh, Traveling Man says, "I think he has multiple Silent Hills games coming that tie in to each other to create his Silent Hill universe." Now there have been um, rumors over the last, I don't know, year and a half or so that multiple Silent Hill games are in the works. Uh, Interestingly, one of them supposedly being worked on by Sony Japan Studio, the now defunct Adu Sony Japan Studio, and the other one supposedly being worked on by Bloober Team, which is a company, a studio that's well known for bringing uh, pancake horror games into VR. So I find that to be a very interesting little tidbit of information.
Yeah, they did Face Your Fears, right? And they moved that flat game into VR. That was Bloober Team, right?
Yeah, Layers of Fear and
Layers of Fear. That's it. Layers of
Blair
Fear.
Blair Witch
Right.
is Bloober Team. That they also did the Observer series. It isn't in VR yet, But I have a sinking suspicion that that one's going to end up in VR as well.
Yeah, funny that you hear their name mentioned with this quite a bit. A well-known team that has experience bringing flat horror games to VR.
Reputable sources say this is the case, and you know, I left all that stuff out in the interest of time, and the fact we've covered that stuff before. So you guys just look back through our Monday shows, and if you're interested in those rumors, uh, the details and where they came from, go back and check out those older episodes because we did talk about this before. So we have Eddie C joining us. What's up, Eddie? Gaming science teacher. There was a VR version made in Dreams, right? Yeah. There's multiple, and they're pretty good too. The biggest difference being the art style. Obviously, people doing this stuff from scratch. It looks like something that was made in Dreams. But the good part is the the audio. The audio is a lot of it came directly from PT. So like the radio track that plays throughout, that is actually in the Dreams version that I played. So anyway, people talking about the possibility that this, if there is a Silent Hills game coming, that it could come to VR. Well, why would we think that? What is the evidence that a Hideo Kojima would want to do something in virtual reality? Well, the evidence is actually quite substantial. Kojima has shown an interest in VR publicly since at least 2015. In September of 2016, Kojima joined the advisory board of Prologue Immersive, a company that's dedicated to building medium-defining content and software for virtual and augmented reality. In 2017, he gave an interview to Rolling Stone magazine, and the subject of VR came up during this interview. He states that VR is a, quote, powerful medium that has the ability to change not only games, but our lives. It'll have a large impact on our culture at large. He also said, quote, I believe that in the very near future, games and movies will meld together. The main difference is that a movie is not interactive, where a game is. It's almost like industrial design, where you need to think about the way many people will interact with a product and design it around that. That's the big difference between movies and games. So, again, it doesn't seem like that long ago, Eric, when we were talking about 2016 and 2017. But I think it's notable that we have Kojima becoming very active in VR during those years because that was the onset of consumer VR. That's when the public first got their Oculus Rifts and their Vives. So this just goes to show that Kojima has been involved to some extent in VR since the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, he's been at it for quite a few years, talking about it, had his fingers on it in different ways, and he's always said, he would love to make a VR game, but he wasn't ready to make it for a couple of reasons, and I think one of them that he said was that VR wasn't mainstream enough at that point. But he said recently, VR is now mainstream enough. It's time. He said it was time.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that I think was holding him back at that point. And he said, though, I think his direct quote was, "The barriers are gone."
Yeah. I mean, we've come a long way, even in just the last year with the onset of the Oculus Quest 2 era. VR is mainstream now, like it never has been before. But anyway, as you can see on the screen here, in 2019, Kojima picked up a Valve Index, and in another interview that year, he once again spoke about the possibilities of VR. Quote, in the 120 years that the Lumiere brothers created, we have a monitor, or we have like this square, like an iPad or an iPhone. We have a frame, right? VR is kind of freed from the limitation of this frame aspect. So I want to do it, definitely. But I don't really have the time right now to concentrate on VR. So this is Kojima, Eric, saying I definitely want to do a VR game. And at the time, this is when he was beginning work, or at least heavily involved with the development of Death Stranding. And again, this was at the very onset of the Oculus Quest 1 era. We've come a long way since then.
You gotta figure if he's looking, at the numbers that something like the Quest is doing, that he's seeing those quests in all types of people's hands. He wants to bring his art form to that many people, guaranteed.
Yeah, and not only that, but we have in the last 4 months, six, we'll say, we've learned about PlayStation VR 2. And Sony and Kojima have been like, this, son, for years now. So you feel like, all right, so when we see the kind of hardware that Sony's coming with, it appears that they're serious about bringing VR to the next level. Now, if we assume that that's true, we also have to assume that they're going to want to put out some software to sell the hardware. And that means bringing in big IPs, whether it be their own or others, such as Silent Hills and Metal Gear Solid. So when you consider that we have Sony over here who has a need to make blockbuster VR games that sell headsets, and then we have their very good friend and partner Kojima over here who has wanted for years to make a VR game. I mean, it's just like it's too perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, how do you come out of the box as PSVR 2 and get your headset in as many homes that already have a PS5 as possible? You put AAA titles that everybody wants to play in VR, Metal Gear Solid, uh, Silent Hill, Death Stranding. I mean, you put some of those titles out there, I guarantee the number of PlayStation VR headsets will rival something like the Oculus headsets within a year. They'll catch right up. Any ground that the Quest 2 has made on PlayStation in this past year, they would lose that quick.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, this is kind of a different topic for a different day, but I kind of feel like the Sony VR space and the Facebook VR spaces, while they overlap a little bit, I kind of feel like these are different bases and these are different customers that they're going for. Where Sony is, where Facebook rather is kind of going for the everyman. They're trying to get your dad and your cousins, everybody to buy a cheap headset to join the metaverse. Sony is all about entertainment. It's all about gamers with Sony. So while we may have some gamers that are buying Quest, and certainly gaming is the backbone of the Facebook platform, Sony's selling to their, again, this is console based VR we're talking about here. They're selling to their own customers, right? People who already have a PlayStation. So I don't feel like there's as much competition here as some people like to think sometimes. Although it is obvious that on at least Facebook Gaming's standpoint, that they view Sony as competition for sure.
Oh yeah, no, they they want to beat Sony, guaranteed. And Eddie C, I am just borrowing Ruuts' chair very shortly because nobody could fill this chair.
Yeah, Roots had prior business that he had to deal with. So if you're watching this, buddy, we miss you, and hopefully we have you back on Wednesday. Even if Roots wasn't busy, um, he's still waiting on his graphics card. So I would have had to put together this cluster F of a show anyway, whether it was Roots or Masher over there in that chair. But we're missing you, to say the least, Roots. So
100%.
anyway, thanks for joining the chat, Mepper. What's up, buddy? As is Onakazi. Hey there. Yeah, Wolveraza says interested in VR is like partial nuclear disarmament. Either you go all the way or forget it. Kojima, if he sees what I have from PlayStation and VR, I don't blame him at all. Yeah. I think the next generation of PlayStation VR is going to be revolutionary in more than one way, and just the type of thing someone like Kojima who wants to blur the lines between the different mediums, music, movies, gaming. he sees it all melding in the one thing. And in my opinion, there's only one way that that's possible with technology we have right now, and that's VR.
Yeah, can you imagine Kojima produced interactive movie VR experience?
Well, that's kind of what that's what Silent Hills was supposed to be. It was, if you go back and read some of the things he said about the reason why he wanted to do a Silent Hills game, it wasn't. There was very little emphasis on player interaction in that. It was a cinematic horror experience. He he said it at the time that he didn't want to put too much into the interactions because he wanted to put all of the resources into realism with regards to the environments and the characters. You don't have to have the player do things to scare the player, right? He needs to see things, he needs to hear them and feel them. So that was kind of his approach, and I think that's why people that's why these rumors have persisted for so long, and people are still talking about it today because we know that horror is the genre for him to do this in. He's going to give people heart attacks if we ever actually allow him to make a game like this.
Yeah, and what better venue than VR to put a horror game? Horror games are a completely different animal when you take it from the flat screen and you put it into VR. I mean, you could take a mediocre flat screen horror game and you could put it in VR and it becomes a completely different thing, more playable, more enjoyable, more immersive, more scary. Um, the difference between playing Resident Evil 7 flat or playing Resident Evil 7 VR. I mean, just think about that.
Which is a significant difference. But you know, a lot of people are saying why now. That everything we've said up until this point is kind of old news. It's stuff we've talked about before. Why is it coming up now? Well, I'll tell you why it's coming up now. It's coming up now because of this. Abandoned. This has been a hot button topic in the larger gaming world for a few months now. A lot of buzz around this game, Abandoned for PS5. Back in April, Abandoned was announced for the PlayStation 5 in a post on the PlayStation blog. The post was by developer Hassan Karaman, the game director at Blue Box Game Studios, and it appeared to be like any normal PlayStation blog post showing off a new upcoming game. A couple months later, Blue Box Game Studios revealed that Abandon would get its own PS5 app which would let players run the game's trailers in real time on PlayStation 5. This is the app that Eric and I were talking about at the top of the episode. It's going to be much more than game trailers. It's going to very much be an immersive experience, according to Hassan. This is a curiously specific thing that not even first-party PlayStation Studio games have done before, so it raised some eyebrows that this unknown game studio would be the first to pioneer the feature. Hassan Karaman, despite having almost zero presence elsewhere, is somehow a verified PSN account, which is an honor reserved for developers and prominent industry figures. The app has subsequently been delayed multiple times and finally now is set to launch in just over a week. So why now? Why are we talking about this on Virtual Strangers now? Well, that's why. Because this app's coming next week, and people expect that there's going to be some even if there isn't total clarity, we're going to learn a lot from this app next week. And this is really the only time that I had the opportunity to talk about it. This Wednesday we got Game of the Month, and and it's like a week from Tuesday that this app drops. So really, we wouldn't have got another Wednesday show before then. So it's kind of now or never. And what are you expecting, Eric, when this app drops? Obviously, you don't know what it's going to be. Do you think we'll know with certainty that whether or not this is going to be a Kojima game at that point, or do you think it's just going to be another in a long line of clues from this months-long wild goose chase.
Yeah, I mean, they're if it's Kojima, he's gonna want to keep this going until the game releases. There's no way that he'll give that game up. He'll give the this Goose Chase game up that quick. There'll be more clues in this. You know there will be. There'll be something, um, and people it'll get people talking. I mean, people are talking about this because of what's going on with it. If it was any other trailer, it looks awesome. It was an amazing trailer. But if it was anything else, it would be okay. I'll look for that game when it comes out. But I mean, people are going nuts for this trailer because of the tie-ins with Kojima or Silent Hill or Metal Gear. You know, so yeah, I think they'll hold on to that. If it turns out to be that, I think they'll hold on to it as long as they can, and you won't have anything definitive until either the launch or right before the launch. But let me ask you this, Wes: how many times did you watch this trailer?
I watched it a few times. People have been kind of critical of it, and I thought it looked really cool. But as it turns out, and I haven't vetted this, I don't know how true it is. I'm just assuming that it's true. But people are saying that all of the imagery in this trailer is stock. It's like stock from a game engine that you can buy these assets. Uh, any game developer knows where to get them, and these specific assets are fairly common and inexpensive uh, assets. And then when asked about this, the Blue Box Studios pretty much said that none of this footage is from the game. This is just something that they threw together because Sony was pressuring them for a trailer, so they just kind of threw something together at the drop of a dime, which to me just seems like the strangest thing, right? I'd rather not have a trailer than throw out a bunch of generic stuff and put my name on it, right?
Yeah, and that's why I watched this trailer probably 6 or 7 times, just because I was trying to catch anything, any kind of a hint that maybe there was something in there of game footage. As you could just tell, there's not. You can definitely tell it's not. It's just trailer. There's no game footage in there at all, because it looks so darn good, right? I mean, if it ever was, I mean, if they could even come close to this, that'll be amazing. It looked really good. The voiceover of the narrator I think that's what people were trying to kind of kill it a little bit because of that, because she sounded a little. It wasn't the best voiceover, I guess, but I still thought it was compelling. I really did.
Yeah, yeah. I felt like the voiceover was a bit cheesy as well, and not for nothing, but the plot that she's describing in her narration wasn't that Far Cry 5? I mean, or even Outlast 2. Like we've seen that before.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And almost the environments, the environment almost looked like it was something from that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, very similar. Yeah, yeah. You're right. And Onakazi in the chat says, I think a GamerAnx video mentioned that the models in the video was all asset flips. Yeah, yeah. So it's obviously a red herring. And by the way, let's assume that it wasn't, right? Let's assume that Blue Box is telling the truth here. Why would Sony pressure this tiny studio for anything, right? I mean, it's not like they're releasing some kind of big blockbuster here.
Yeah, I mean, what you know, number one, how are they getting access to all this new things that Sony is letting them do with the trailer, with the interactive trailer, and why would they be putting so much pressure on an indie team who's never put a game out before, to make sure you have something to show, a good-looking trailer to show? It's a little
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah, and it's the nature of this app that really got a lot of people speculating that this might be Kojima because, the most notable instance of a game being promoted by an application is PT. It's kind of the most infamous of all of these types of promotion. So, people drawing obvious comparisons there. But really, that wasn't what kicked off the firestorm of speculation around this game. What did it was actually a tweet from the developer Blue Box Studios themselves, and I'm talking about this tweet right here. So June 15th, 2021, just about a month ago, month and a half ago. Guess the name, Abandon. So they said Abandon isn't really even the name of the game. It's a code word. It's a working title. But they said guess the name. Abandon equals first letter S, last letter L. Reveal closing in. Hashtag PS5, hashtag exclusive. So, Eric, I mean, you know, what did they think that people would say to a tweet like this? Like, even someone like me who isn't this big, you know, multiple decade fan of Kojima and his work, and or the Silent Hill franchise, like even I would look at that and go, they're talking about Silent Hill.
I mean, if this doesn't turn out to be anything that's like that Silent Hill or anything that has to do with it, this is like the complete biggest mind fuck ever, right? They're just like, we just want to screw with you guys so hard, right? They're like, yeah, it starts with S, ends with L. Come on.
Yeah, I know, right? But immediately, almost immediately, Blue Box Studios went on the defensive because this tweet really blew up. This was kind of the watershed moment where this conspiracy theory leaked into the mainstream consciousness. It blew up overnight to the point that Blue Box had to issue this tweet. We wanted to set things straight. We have no relations with Konami. Silent Hill is owned by Konami. We do not have any relations with Hideo Kojima. It was never our intention to tease the name as Silent Hill. We sincerely apologize for this. So, obviously, the naturally skeptical among us took this thing at face value, and ever since this, they've been calling the rest of us stupid for even entertaining this. But I'm not buying it, man.
No way. Do you think they even wrote that thing with a straight face? I mean, how could you even write that down on paper and put it out there and go, yeah, we didn't mean anything about Silent Hill. Why are you guys taking it that way?
Right. Well, people say, how could you believe after that statement? I mean, they outright said that they're not associated with Konami or Kojima. Well, one, they could be lying. you know. Second of all, if their studio is a fake studio, then they're not affiliated with anybody, right? There are ways around. This could be a carefully worded misdirection and not an outright lie. But I mean, beyond any of that, no one's stupid for believing these conspiracy theories. Because there's so much more than just these tweets. First of all, there's the fact that if this does turn out to be a Hideo Kojima ruse, it isn't the first. Kojima used a fake studio and fake developers when both teasing the Metal Gear Solid 5 game as well as the PT and Silent Hills. He's done this twice before, Eric, where, he's even gone so far as to hire an actor to portray the lead developer of a fake studio that he created. How could people not think that this is a Kojima ruse, even if it isn't? Are you with me, buddy? I'm not hearing you in my ear.
Yep, you cut out for a minute, but you're back now.
Okay, so I was basically I was talking about people. Whether or not this turns out to be true or not, people aren't stupid for believing it because Kojima's done this twice before, both with Metal Gear Solid 5 and with PT/Silent Hills. He's promoted these games from a fake studio, and he's even gone so far as to hire actors to pretend to be lead developers. So he's done this kind of thing before. It wouldn't be the first time. So whether or not this turns out to be true or it isn't, nobody should feel bad for believing it because, again, it's just history repeating itself.
Yeah, no, Kojima loves this stuff. I mean, this is almost like part of making a game for him is making the game of the PR around the game. He lives for this stuff. It's just part of him being an artist. And how do you make a ton of hype or PR for a game um, before it even is thought of or even thought to ready to come out? Is you put little hints out there and you put little clues out there. He's bringing us all. If this is true, he would be bringing us all exactly where we want to go. But he's kind of leading us with little breadcrumbs. So and he has done this many times and he loves doing it and he does it very well.
Well, I mean, it's a very effective means of marketing, right? I mean, this people eat this stuff up.
Yeah, 100%. The Game Cat asked, "Does this have anything to do with VR?" It does. We hope it has a lot to do with VR eventually.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that he's just now tuning in. Meow Meow the Gamer Cat. Earlier in the discussion, we did a segment where we talked about why this might be a game that supports VR, and we backed it up with some cold hard facts. So I suggest that after the stream ends, that you scroll back a little bit if you're interested in that.
Yeah, 100%.
Anyway, and I mean, and even there's even more that I didn't put in there, but there's certainly I wouldn't call it quite 50-50, but there's a real possibility that Kojima's next game supports VR.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, there's a lot more going on here other than just the Kojima's history that people are citing as clues to what this abandoned app might be, and it was way too much for me to list even half of it. But I listed here the main things that that really stick out to me, like the stuff I find very interesting. Um, and we're going to talk about uh, some of that stuff right now. Outside of Kojima and his history, there's the question of who is Blue Box Studios anyway. Let's start with the logo for Blue Box Studios. As you can see right here, it's just the PlayStation Studios logo inverted. Even uses the same font, Eric. I mean, isn't this a little bit on the nose?
Absolutely. I mean, the same exact size square around the PlayStation logo.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
and if you watch some of the PlayStation logo animations, uh, there are some of the more prominent ones have this kind of glowing blue box around the logo. So a lot of people believe that that's what the actual phrase "blue box" is referring to.
mhm.
But also, there's the fact that Blue Box Game Studios only seems to have a single employee. Again, Hassan Karaman, who coincidentally or not happens to share initials, the same initials as Hideo Kojima. So HK, Hassan Karaman, HK, Hideo Kojima. Now, some of you might think that that's a bit of a stretch, but get this. If you translate the word Hideo from Japanese to Turkish, what does it translate to? But Karaman. So this developer, this supposedly real developer, happens to have a last name that translates directly to Hideo. I mean, can that possibly be a coincidence, Eric?
It's crazy because if you took one of these things and said, "Hey, this is this," and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's way too far to go. You're looking for something that's not there." But all of a sudden, you start putting these little pieces together, and you're like, "Man, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense." And you're like, "This can't. I mean, this can't be not real, or is it? Or is it just they're doing it on purpose to make it a complete fake out?" It's going to be one of those two things. They either did it on purpose to be a complete screw job of everybody, or it is what it is, and it's Kojima.
Yeah, there's so much, and there is a lot of that stuff. Like, there's some stuff you'll read and you'll be like, come on, man, that's a little bit of a stretch. But when you look at the big picture as a whole, the preponderance of evidence, thing after thing after thing after thing, um, it all adds up to paint a very different picture. And I'm going to go through these a little bit quickly now because we are coming to the end of our allotted time. But with regards, we're still on Blue Box Studios here. Um, Despite saying that they've worked as a support studio for years, you won't find any record of games that they've supposedly assisted on within the past, or other developers even that have talked about working on the Abandoned project. Um, Supposedly, based in the Netherlands, Blue Box Game Studios appears to have been founded in 2015. Get this, exactly 1 year to the day after the release of the PT playable teaser. And this was right around the time that Kojima split with Konami. In 2016, it was announced that Kojima Productions was opening up a small satellite studio, as you can see here, and in that very same place, right in the Netherlands, the same place that Blue Box Game Studios is supposedly located. Now, I found this one interesting, Eric. You know, we have Blue Box popping up in the Netherlands right around the same time that we have these reports of Kojima opening up a small studio in the Netherlands. That's a bit of a weird coincidence, isn't it?
Hell yeah! In 1 year to the day exactly that
Yeah.
PT launched. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, if this does turn out to be a long con, I mean, it's got to be one of the most epic of all time. I mean, this guy's been working. I mean, if this is true, this guy's been working uh, on this basically this media campaign for 5 years, and it's just now starting to come together. I would imagine that if this is true, there's a lot more to come for us as fans.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, the list of connections that fans have made early on in the life of this conspiracy theory, the list is staggering, and it's too much to cover, as I just said. But fans have cited things such as Blue Box Game Studios' YouTube banner, which is a bunch of hills engulfed in a thick fog. Employees at the company, the Blue Box LinkedIn profile, use stock photos, much like the abandoned trailer, using stock assets. Hassan, the lead developer, has a YouTube channel called 2727. Of course, the Silent Hills project was canceled on April 27th. At the abandoned trailer that we watched earlier, at the 49 seconds mark, the letters P and T are the only letters that are covered by the trees. That one's a little bit of a stretch, but I mean, it's absolutely true. Uh, Hassan Karaman's PSN profile. I thought this one was funny, Eric. Hassan Karaman's PSN profile pic. Um, it's an icon, and the icon reads DevCon 2021. So,
Yeah.
like a con job by a developer in 2021. It's like he's shoving it in our face here.
He's trolling us, bro. He's trolling us.
And by the way, do you know who loves it that when you shove it in your face?
My mom.
My mom. Anyway, there are literally dozens of these. Literally dozens. Too many to list here. I would suggest you do your own research. It's not hard to find. It'll blow your mind just how much and how obscure some of this stuff people are noticing is. Like, these people are eagle-eyed, man, and they notice everything. Nothing gets by them.
Just goes to show you how many people care about this and want to look for any little thing they can to point them in the direction that something like this is happening.
Yeah, yeah. People are passionate about it for sure. But anyway, following the most recent delay of the abandoned PS5 app, things on the conspiracy front kind of slowed down. It got quiet for a few weeks after this last delay, and when it was obvious that there was going to be a month or longer before we got this app. Things got quiet. People quit coming with the new evidence, and it all calmed down until the new evidence. The new evidence. There's new evidence, and some of you that have even been following this might not be aware of these last few tidbits here, as this is stuff that has literally dropped in the last couple of days. Again, evidence that Blue Box is really Kojima Productions, evidence that Abandon is really a Kojima project. A few days ago, the Blue Box Twitter account dropped a new promo image for the Abandon real-time trailer app. And that image is this one right here. So at first glance, nothing odd about this, but if you turn the brightness, I'm sorry, there's a blue. You can notice there's a blurred face in the background, which at first doesn't seem. I mean, it's weird, but there's nothing really that sticks out about it until you look at the left eye on the face. There's an eye patch there, Eric, and I'm sure as a Metal Gear Solid fan, uh, this immediately brings images to your mind, doesn't it?
Hell yeah, that's Big Boss.
Yeah, there could be any number of characters, right? There's any number of uh, characters from the Metal Gear franchise. I think there's like 3 or 4 different characters that sport eye patches in that thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean it could be Big Boss, could be Solid Snake, could be Ocelot. There's a couple different characters that it could be, but it really looks like Big Boss.
yeah, and think about this for a minute, right? So we had the Blue Box Studios earlier tweet with the starts with an S and ends with an L, and then them coming out immediately and saying, "Oops, our bad. That was completely by accident. We didn't mean to lead people into thinking that this is a Kojima project." Now this, like, this is intentional, right? They know what they're doing.
Oh my god, yeah. Again, like I said, this is either the biggest mind fuck ever, or there's something here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
at this point, they're going with it. Like, even if it was initially something that they got into by accident, and Abandon really is this indie game from this brand new studio. At this point, with this promo, it's obvious that they're doing this intentionally.
yeah, absolutely. Meow Meow the Game Cat says if Fifth Dev goes missing or turns up dead.
Right, right. They're going to suicide themselves.
Yeah, right.
I'd like to point out that there are some blurred out words there. If you look just above abandon, you'll notice that the image isn't the only thing that's blurred out. There are words there, and a lot of people are speculating what those could be. To me, just judging by the length of it, uh, it would fit if that said "Welcome to Silent Hill," which of course doesn't make sense with the Metal Gear imagery. But I mean, again, if they're just trying to drop hints, who knows what this thing could be?
Yeah, I mean, if it ever did turn out to be Kojima, he could just be putting all kinds of hints just to state that, hey, this is me. And,
Right?
maybe it's not a Silent Hill game. Maybe it's not a Metal Gear Solid game sorry, a Metal Gear game, but maybe it is a Kojima game. And if that's a Kojima game, I want to play it anyway. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the
So
thing. I tend to believe that it's not going to be Metal, or at least not only Metal Gear Solid. I do think that the Silent Hills game, or at least PT, because the PT teaser actually had nothing to do with Silent Hills. It was something that was made as a proof of concept by Kojima. So I mean, they could technically make another horror game that's not Silent Hills, but is based on the abandoned PT trailer. But I tend to believe that this is Silent Hills. If this is a Kojima project, at least. But I mean, there is no abandoned Metal Gear game. You know what I mean? There is the
right.
abandoned Silent Hills game, and beyond that, we know that again, Kojima was working with Guillermo del Toro as well as Norman Reedus on Silent Hills, and a couple days ago, Norman Reedus dropped this little video here on his Instagram. Now, I don't know if there are any Silent Hill fans out there, but if there are, you're going to recognize this rabbit. This is Robbie the Rabbit, a blood covered character from Silent Hill 3. So why would Reedus all of a sudden just be dropping this out of nowhere, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, Kojima and Ritas are attached at the hip for all kinds of stuff, and now he throws this video out here on the same day. I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
yeah, and get this, like, he's been quoted in recent weeks or months, even. Like since the release of Death Stranding, he's been quoted multiple times saying that he's already starting talks with Kojima for their next project. So we already know that he's working with Kojima on something. Wouldn't it be awesome if it were the abandoned Silent Hills game? And I kind of feel like this little video here might be a coded message from Mr. Reedus telling us that that is precisely what's happening here. And if it's true, I think it's something to be very, very excited about.
Yeah. Now, what do you think, Wes? Do you think this could be not for this game? Do you think all this hype could be leading up for the next game, for a PlayStation VR2 game launch? You know what I
So,
mean? Maybe they're starting the hype now.
well, as our chat noted, and as we noted earlier, there have been rumors of two Silent Hill games that I know that there's been talks of two games from multiple reputable sources. Now, whoever it was in the chat earlier mentioned that those games are supposedly going to tie in together, and if that's the case, then what you're saying here makes a lot of sense. Now, I would be surprised if the game turned out to be a VR exclusive, but I would expect VR support. And I think that when you're talking about a cinematic game with not a lot of player interaction, I feel like that's something that could work flat or VR. But like Resident Evil 7, it's not going to be as visceral on a screen, nearly as visceral as it is in VR.
100%. And I think Kojima knows that.
So we are out of time here. I do have one more little tidbit of evidence before we sign off, and that came just a couple days ago when a new, almost indiscernible image was noticed by those who preloaded the PS5 app for Abandon. At first, nothing can be seen, but if you turn the brightness and contrast way up, an image of a door and a table come into view. Now, some people believe that this is the door from the beginning room of PT, and that's certainly a possibility, but people have pointed out details that make that less of a likelihood, and they have noted that there is a door at the end of Silent Hill 4, a very important door to the story that it almost perfectly matches up with in terms of the features that can be seen in this latest picture that has dropped from Abandon. Apparently, the door and the table line up pretty perfectly with this chained door from Silent Hill 4. Again, just another on a mountain of evidence that that this Abandoned game actually is a Kojima game, and it is Silent Hill. So, in conclusion, I believe that it's safe to say at this point that Abandon isn't what it claims to be. What it actually is, well, that remains to be seen. I think we can agree on that, right? That this isn't just some random game from some random studio. Sony's playing at something here, aren't they?
I mean, we know that Sony is very particular about what they release, right? They don't want too many bad games out there. Now, I can't imagine that they would have let this indie company do all this promo, do all these things that they've been putting out there, and then have this game not live up to what everybody thinks it's going to be. That would be a complete bomb for Sony. It would make them look bad, and Sony does not like to be made look bad,
right.
For sure.
They would have squashed it by now, basically. If this wasn't didn't have something to it, they wouldn't have allowed it to go on like this.
Right, and we know what does Sony like. They like hype. They like hype. They like people talking about releases that are only Sony, and so this is going to be something. This is going to be something. I guarantee it.
Right, and when you consider the rumors of the multiple Silent Hill titles in development that we previously talked about, I consider Silent Hills the front runner, and whether or not Kojima is involved is another matter entirely. This could be Silent Hills without Kojima. I think it's safe to say at this point that this is something that we're all hoping for, because after all, with Kojima potentially comes many things, namely Guillermo del Toro, Norman Reedus, and most importantly, VR support. Anyway, thanks for doing this, man. Thanks for talking about this with us, and we're going to know soon, right? Within a little over a week, we're going to have the next clue, and maybe we can get back together at a later date and do an update video.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. We're going to have a lot to talk about just in a week from now. It's going to be exciting.
Anyway, if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, hit the big red button and the bell to stay up with all of our content. We should be back to our regularly scheduled programming on Wednesday. If not, we'll have something for you. We might even have Mr. Eric back on again if Ruuts has other things going on. Anyway, the point is, I've got you covered. We're going to have your content. Lots of game footage coming up this week as well. So again, be sure you're hitting that bell if you haven't already. Anyway, with that said, friends, I'd like to thank you all once again for watching. For Eric, I'm Wes. We'll see you in a couple days, friends. Probably tomorrow or the next day with the gameplay.